They went around to all the artists to see who would do it, and they got turned away from that artist. Finally, they found an artist to do it, and when it was all done and completed, and it went out on social media, it just exploded. And then we started to question not only who is eligible, but who has ownership. Who are the custodians?
The Transformative Marks podcast explores how Indigenous tattoo artists, cultural tattoo practitioners, and ancestral skin markers transform this world for the better, dot by dot, line by line, and stitch by stitch. My name is Dion Kazas. I'm a Hungarian, Métis, and Intikatmuk professional tattoo artist and ancestral skin marker. I started the work of reviving my ancestral Intikatmuk skin marking practice over a decade ago. I've helped, supported, and trained practitioners and tattoo artists here on Turtle Island. In this podcast, I sit down with Indigenous tattoo artists, cultural tattoo practitioners, and ancestral skin markers from across the globe, bringing you behind the scenes of this powerful, transformative, and spiritual work.
I roto I tōku reo Māori, ko tongariro te maunga, ko taupua nui a tia te moana, ko te Aotearoa te waka, ko tūwhare toa te iwi, ko te au te tangata. Koera te taho o tōku whaia, te taho o tōku pāpā, no Hāmoa, no Fiji. So to translate that, I just identified my mother and father's side. My tribe in New Zealand is my mother's side. She comes from a tribe called Tūwhare Toa. And when you identify yourself, people will say, where are you from? And you identify a mountain, your waters, your canoe, your house, and your illustrious chiefly ancestor. So those are the things I've just outlined. That's my mother's side. And on my father's side, he's Fijian, Scottish, and Samoan German. So I'm a bit of a mix.
I think we all are, aren't we?
Yeah, we're all a bit of a mix. Yeah, so that's me, and yeah, my family call me Jack, but people know me as Haki.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long have you been tattooing? How long have you been doing Moko?
I've been doing Moko since 1999. Yeah.
And what was that journey to get into the work?
I always had this inclination that I was always going to do this. And, but when I started out, there was very few practitioners in the country. There's about six practitioners in the country. The revival had only just started. Yeah, and I had spent my teenage years, because I was an artist, I had an artistic skill. A lot of my uncles would get me to restore old houses, meeting houses, because I had paintbrush skills. And then I learnt the skill of all our local knowledge back home of motifs. Yeah, so when I learnt that, I started designing. So I had a portfolio of designs where I'd, in my head, I'd take those motifs and put them on the body. Yeah. And so when my partner and she was pregnant with our first child, she goes, "Oh, you're going to have to get a real job." So during her pregnancy, I took like 6 months off just to look after her so she could finish her degree. So when she went off to class, I'd sit at home drawing for 6 months. Wow. Yeah, and so at the end of 6 months, I had this big portfolio. And people were requesting me, because it was starting to be trendy at the time, can you design a piece for like a band or for my body? Yeah, I can do that. So I took my portfolio, and the two artists that I did know of, practitioners, Tāmoko practitioners, I went to see them in Auckland, and I says, I have some designs. Are you able, if I give you the design, and I'll bring you the client, which will be my family.
Yeah.
Can you do it?
Mm.
So they opened up my portfolio and went, would you like a job? So yeah, that's how I started my apprenticeships.
Wow.
And both artists who I did go and see both offered me an apprenticeship straight on the spot.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was.
So putting in the work helped.
Yeah. Yeah. So consciously and unconsciously, I was always walking
that path.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you think about it, one of the things that I was interested to talk to you about is, the progression of the work that you've seen here in Aotearoa. When we look, you walk down the street and there's Moko studios all over the place, going from, at the time, I think you said there were 6 practitioners doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And now you go and you can see them all over. Yeah.
There's hundreds.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when you think about that, is that exciting for you to see the explosion of that work? Just explore that with me a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited to see. I'm always encouraging talent.
Yeah.
So if I see talent, you can't deny talent.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of talent.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they need guidance.
Yeah.
When you've been in that circle and you've got some years under your belt, you get a bit of wisdom and a bit of integrity and a bit of experience.
Yeah.
And when you see these young, talented people, you see yourself when you were starting. Yeah. So I think when you look at the journey of the Renaissance of Tāmoko and Aotearoa, I been speaking about this often actually, that there's at the moment in our social where we're headed as Māori people, especially with facial tattooing, we're getting to a point where it's becoming normalized. It's familiar to us in Aotearoa. So, just to give you an example, the first female moko kauai, the chin tāmoko, when I first did maybe the first 4 or 5, they were all old women. So they were all 70s, 60s, 70s. And over the last 20 years, the perception has changed. Yeah. And that social benchmarks moved from 70, it's come all the way down, and we've arrived now where we're doing 13, 14, 15, 16.
Wow.
Yeah. And so a lot of my work now has shifted. I've shifted my space from being not a cultural practitioner in a commercial space, but I've shifted from being a cultural practitioner in a cultural space. Yes, just like the setting we're at this festival. Yeah. We're on the marae, and so I'll go into a community. I'll get invited to a community, and we talk about the aspirations of not an individual receiving facial moko, but a whole community. Wow. And when you start thinking along those lines, you're laying a legacy, and I ask them, what do you want? Not for yourselves, but for generations from now. Yeah. So when I get them, I take them on a journey. Now we look backwards. When I started, there were 6 practitioners. The only people wearing facial markings were either gang members that were in prison, and our activists. Yeah. So they were considered the rebellious ones. Yeah. And when you look at it, the gang members are rebellious, and so are the activists. Yeah. You know? So a lot of the, when I say there was 6, when I started, 6 practitioners, they will tell you that they went to the gang members to get information and about facial tattooing. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So when I talk to a community, I said, 25, 30 years ago, it was the questions and the thinking was, how do we shift facial tattooing away from the perception that it belonged to the gangs? Yeah. How do we move that? Yeah. How do we shift that, make it a cultural practice? Yeah. And so slowly over the years, so if we incrementally go every 5 years, 10 years, that slowly moves, that perception slowly moves. Yeah, so when in the beginning of the Renaissance, you'll get those elderly people that would receive mokoa. Yeah. And then it started, the mothers and the daughters would get it. Mm. So you get a 70-year-old and a 50-year-old. Yeah. And then, so that's when a question of is the eligibility. Who's the eligibility question? Yeah. Who has the right to wear it? Yeah, who can get the work? Yeah. Yeah. So that's when you start thinking of legacy. You start thinking intergenerational, eh? Mm. And the progression of moko moved so fast and it became so contemporary that when you looked at work 3 years, it happened 3 years ago, it was quite vastly different from what was happening at the present time. Yeah. So it was moving really fast. Mm. People were trying colours and all sorts of fads, just stylistic fads within the moko world. Yeah. And so what happened, you get the mothers and the daughters, and so you're starting to get the practitioners were starting to move around the world. Yeah. And non-Māori were getting facial markings. Mm. Yeah. And non-Māori in Aotearoa were getting facial markings. And those are the real pivotal points in development. Because when you think about moko, everyone talks about facial. Yeah. So if we look at the facial, especially with the women and the men, the mataora and the moko kauai, the chin, pivotal points is when maybe 10 years ago, a European lady, we call them a Pākehā woman. Yeah. She was blonde, lipstick, very, to us, to look at her, she'll be superficial, all cosmetic. Yeah. She was married to a Māori, her husband was Māori, and through the work they did, he believed that she deserved a moko kauai. Ah. And when that happened, they went around to all the artists to see who would do it, and they got turned away from that artist. Finally, they found an artist to do it, and when it was all done and completed, and it went out on social media, it just exploded. Yeah. And then we started to question not only who is eligible, but who has ownership. Who are the custodians? And when we talk about custodians, we talk about our word for custodian is called a kaitiaki. So we protect it. So who protects it? Yeah. Yeah. No, that was the because the artists get caught in the middle, and in a lot of these big controversial instances, we usually speak last. Yeah, and we let everyone decide. Yeah, define it. Yeah, put it into the context of what it is. Yeah. So, who's eligible? Who has the right to wear it? Who does it belong to? Yeah. And in that time and space, it was the Māori woman that stepped forward, and this belongs to us. So when they took ownership of it, opened the floodgates. Yeah. And Māori women in their hundreds are getting done. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
And the men are different, but we're going through that same thing right now. You get in the recent history, 20 years, you do one man to every 15 women. Yeah. Yeah. It's a very powerful statement for a man to get done. Yeah. Yeah, it's because it's so politically, culturally, socially confronting. Yeah, that people, they're threatened by it. Yeah. Yeah. Whereas it's not an act of being a threat. Yeah. Yeah, it's an act of taking back ownership of yourself. You know? Yeah. You're expressing who I am. Yeah. Yeah. So it's so if we take those things, who has ownership, who's eligible, and now when you look at the who's the famous Kardashian husband that became a woman?
Oh yeah, Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner.
Caitlyn Jenner. Yep. So all those things are happening in the world, and those lines of sexuality are getting blurred. And so you get non-Māori asking for facial moko, and then now you have the lines are getting blurred where transsexual men were asking to have markings of a woman, and that blew up as a real controversial topic.
Question, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting when just kind of circling back to think about in the beginning, even for ourselves, we don't necessarily have the gang member aspect, but definitely the activists are the ones who have been stepping forward, and primarily the women, activists are the ones who started with the facial markings. Yeah. So it's interesting to see, of course, those people that are, what would you say, okay with being looked at side eye, a little bit. Yeah. And then it, like you said, it just starts to progress. So it's cool to see those kind of parallels between what's happened here and what's happening there. And one of the reasons it's important for me to have these conversations here is also that you've, had these conversations about who can wear it, who owns it, all of those stuff, so that maybe we won't come to the same conclusion, but at least you've had a bit of a conversation prior to us, that, can bring a bit of an insight into it. Hey there, listeners. It's Dion Kazas, your host from the Transformative Marks podcast, where we dive deep into the world of Indigenous tattooing, ancestral skin marking, and cultural tattooing. If you found value in our episodes, we've made you laugh, or you've learned something new, consider showing your support by buying me a coffee on Ko-Fi.com. Ko-Fi is this incredibly creator-friendly platform where you can support me directly for just the cost of a cup of coffee. No subscriptions, no hidden fees, just a simple one-time gesture that goes a long way in keeping me on the air. Plus, Ko-Fi doesn't take a cut, so every penny goes directly into improving the podcast. From updating equipment to visiting with new guests as I go into recording season 2. So if you like what you hear and you'd like to help me keep the lights on, head over to my Ko-Fi page, www.ko-fi.com/transformative marks. The link is in the show notes.
Yeah, I had a good friend. I went to university and just recently and furthered my my education, got a master's, and in my class was the very person. He was very effeminate, and he was the one that was involved in this incident where he got a moko kaua, a makina of woman, and the very first image he put of himself the next morning of him wearing it, it went viral.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and he told me he spent the next 3 years in depression.
Oh wow!
He put up a really brave face.
Yeah.
But it was all over all over social media. It's all over our native TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what came out of that is he carried on and he added to it to make it look like a male.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So he moved on.
Yeah.
But he grew out of it, and it was one of those, another instance where us as Māori people, Māori culture, had to decide, and it took all those little controversial moments for us to, in those first 20, 30 years, this expression, this art form is really malleable. You know, we had to sort of shape it ourselves, and it takes those things to happen for us to evolve it into what it is today.
Yeah, well, that's I think it's true of all of the things that I think each generation has to take ownership of what's been passed to them and decide what it's going to mean for them for their time. Because of course, when I even think about we were talking in the car today about having Walkmans, compared to all of our stuff on our phones. So like you think of how far the world, of the next 10, 20 years, those folks who are picking up the work, they're going to have to decide what it means for them today because it's so different. Even thinking back to my own childhood, party line, you can on the phone, you didn't have you'd have to pick it up and see if somebody in the neighborhood was on the line or not, and all that type of stuff.
You sort of wonder, how did we survive without a
exactly.
Wi-Fi,
Yeah, totally. And then, so just thinking about how, my own life is different. And then you think about through the renaissance of these markings into today, having to have these conversations, difficult conversations to decide what the marks mean for us today is really important. And for us, for my own community, we definitely have two-spirit people that we talk about them in terms of two-spirit people who, have those masculine and feminine energies, and finding a way to ensure that those people are honored for us is important. But I think that's also another thing that's important in having these conversations, because I find that a lot of people speak as if, as an Intakatmuk person, the way that I see the world and the way that I do things automatically transfers to you as a Maori person in your culture, in your community. So just remembering that, those things are important to talk about culturally and not to impose my understanding even as an individual and as a community member on you. So that's why I wanted to have these type of the podcast and have these different perspectives come forward, because people do the work differently than I do, but it's important for us to have those conversations. And I always say for us as Intakatmuk Interior Salish people, we sit in a circle because nobody is higher than the other. So each voice is important. So I'm really, I'm super excited to be able to chat with you, especially considering the amount of time that you've been doing the work and doing those marks. When you think back to the beginning of your journey, what were those struggles that you had to overcome as a Moko practitioner?
I think it was dealing with people who still associating, they couldn't see the value of this art form as a cultural one. Yeah.
That's interesting, eh? When you think about it, and as we step in, we see it.
Yeah.
For Māori folks, it is as a cultural practice.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to hear you say that. Could you say more?
If you're not connected, if you don't have practice, or you have an understanding of, as a Māori, of what the Māori world, you're assimilated to another way of living. So when you see Moko for the first time, it's like, what are you doing? What's this?
Yeah.
What are you trying to be?
Yeah.
Leave that in the past. It doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you align it with the revival of the language, it all aligns up. Yeah. It's about creating a environment to understand and learn. So how do we get our kids speaking our language? You create schools. You create model schools on old ways of learning. Epistemologies and all this sort of, it's all been academically, defined and understood, all of that. But you have to be continuous and do the high schools and the colleges and have a seamless, stream of learning. Yeah. So if you're not in that stream, you look at it. You don't look at it through a Māori worldview with Māori eyes. Yeah. And you don't think Māori. So when you speak Māori, your language changes to how you see things symbolically. You have you can think metaphorically. Yeah.
True story.
Yeah.
One of the things, when I think about your work as well, we were at the gathering here, and you have some beautiful artwork that you've done on the table. So what is the other stuff that you do besides Moko creatively?
Well, I mentioned I made my start restoring old houses. But I also involved at building new houses. Yeah, so which is it's another journey in itself. And you don't actually call it another journey. It's all a relative journey. So what I have in my toolkit as a Moko practitioner, I just use in that space. Yeah. So it's all. And when you start doing work on that nature, you have to realise that, especially on coming to the marae to do an event like this, a gathering, once you step into that space, you got to realise all those other related ceremonial practices all come together. So the pōwhiri, the traditional welcome, the traditional oratory, the traditional wailing of welcome by the women, that all comes together. Everything. And that's where it all becomes seamlessly involved intergenerationally. You got to get all your old people there. So when I mention you move out of a cultural practice out of a commercial space. So if I'm in a tattoo shop, it's a commercial practice.
Yeah.
So you come into those old people aren't there. There's no porphyry. There's no traditional chanting.
Yeah.
You just come and sit down.
Yeah.
I do my work. You give me the money and you walk out.
Yeah.
That's a commercial practice.
Yeah, big time.
It is devoid of. You're devoiding your artistic practice of its cultural the cultural practice, the spiritual practice. So, but when we're at a gathering like this, we join all those practices together. But when we have other Indigenous people, we bring your practices together and spiritual connections, and we start joining us all up. And then that's, by definition, a difference. Rather than we go to a tattoo convention with other tattooists, the tattoo parlor artist, it's a
totally different.
It's a foreign world to me.
Yeah.
A foreign space, it's just
big time.
Yeah,
it's an important distinction, I think, that you're bringing up in terms of moving a cultural practice in a commercial space to a cultural space. And I forgot when we were there the first time, but you had talked about you're asking those communities when you come in to not only moving it from an envisionment of an individual who would like to get the work done to like thinking as a community, which I think that is such a important way of positioning that work, and an important question for people to start to remember, that this is actually for your community, not just for yourself. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because then it becomes the accountability is not on the individual. It's a decision made by people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, once upon a time, an individual will come to your shop. I want to get my chin.
Yeah. Walks
in as an individual.
Yeah.
And my criteria is, we don't do it here. If you want, I can do it.
Yeah.
But go back to your marae and then ask me from there, and I'll come to your marae.
Wow.
And then we'll do it.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, you start involving everyone besides yourself.
Yeah.
It becomes a collective decision.
Yeah.
Or a collective agreement.
Yeah.
No?
To uphold it.
To uphold it.
Yeah. And also, too, when I think about that, that's also like a way of training those little ones.
Yeah.
Right? It becomes normal.
Yep.
It was so funny. I was working on Gregory. We were doing his chest, and one of the little ones from the marae came in. He's like, "Is that spicy?" That was pretty cool to, it's just normal.
Yeah.
It's just normal for them to see the work being done.
If I'm in a setting, and I'm doing facial moko.
Yeah.
So you got all the family there.
Yeah.
One of my little things is, when it's all finished, I will go and pick up the youngest child there, and I'll get a photo.
Yeah.
Do you know why? Apart from having, social media.
Yeah.
That youngest living person there will have a visual record, and he'll be witness to the grandmother getting done. So, and when this 5-year-old or 4-year-old is 80, she can. This is me as a 5-year-old with my.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. A record to be able to think back.
Yeah.
Even though you haven't you can't remember it, but you hear that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people ask, do you mind, we have a few children here. Are they allowed around? Yep.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Let them come. They got to see it. they've got to feel it, be part of it.
Well, yeah, that's why I always say that too. People will have their young ones and, start crying, and I'm like, no, like, let them do their thing.
Yeah.
It means that this place is alive.
Yeah.
So for me, it's important to have them included. So yeah, that's cool to see that there's a similarity in the way that we see that intergenerational sharing.
But I mean, I tell people it's a roller coaster ride. I said, if we're from the time you start to the time you finish, you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll feel scared, you'll feel empowered.
Yeah,
you feel all those things within in that little space.
Yeah,
it's quite fun. So I lighten. If it gets heavy, I'll lighten the mood. You say, there's a tradition that when the recipient's getting done, you have to sing, country music. Both country and western.
Oh yeah,
don't be stupid. Just get people just to break it.
Bring it back.
Yeah.
It's interesting when I think about. So yesterday, I think it was yesterday, you're working on a bigger piece. Can you tell me what that is and share what that piece is called, etc.?
Okay. I was doing a traditional the thigh and buttock and lower back tāmoko, and it's called the pūhoro.
Yep.
And I'll share the personal. He's a younger cousin. This client is my younger cousin. So I'm 51. My cousin is 40. And in our clan, or our sub-tribe, my people, all the older men we're losing them. They're all passing away. So there's we get into that point where I'm having to do step into being an older, more responsibilities.
I can see you're talking about that gently. Just an older.
So my client, my younger cousin, I have, and pūhoro in my family is not seen. So I've identified. I'm in a position where I have younger cousins that look up to me, and so in my family I've identified three of my younger cousins that I know that are leaders. They have show all the qualities of leadership, and so I'm going to mark them, and they're all markings for leadership. They're markings of being they call him he's the one, he's the hallman. He stands on the canoe giving the direction. Our canoe is headed this way. He's the only one that stands up in the canoe. And these are what these young men are. They're the ones that give direction when I'm not there. Because I'm a believer that a good leader encourages other leaders. So
big time. Gotta lift everybody up.
Gotta lift everyone, because you don't want to do it all by you want to do it together. You want to do it together. So someone came up, was watching us yesterday, and they said, "How much does one of those cost?" And if you are to ask an artist a direct, matter-of-fact question like that, if I give you a matter-of-fact answer of $6,000, no. And so my younger cousins, I'm paying it forward. I'm investing in them. And that investment will bear fruit bigger than I said, I'm going to mark you. This is what we're going to do this year.
Yeah.
This is our where we're going, and we're going to do your pūhoro.
Yeah.
And he said to me, I'm not in a financial position to do this. I said, no, it's all right. We'll invest now, and then and we'll reap the benefits of this, and I will too.
Yeah.
When this is completed, because
Yeah.
they'll become the example.
Yeah.
All those young men to follow. I want to be that.
You'll have an example. You'll see it.
Yeah. Because all those young men they all do what I do. Yeah. They get given responsibility as an orator.
Yeah.
They're all the next orators to come.
Yeah.
They're all the next leaders to come. Yeah. And then you look at the women and my younger woman cousins, and you do the same for them. Yeah. So around in my community, you use it to strengthen your future. Yeah. So that's where I'm taking this with my family. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to begin to look at that in terms of the idea of investment, right? A lot of people will look at that and think about that in terms of like a monetary investment. But, I can totally see in terms of the way that you're talking about it, that you really are bringing it from that commercial to that cultural and then into the cultural space. Because you're saying, I'm investing, and that investment is actually for your community, for your people. And that investment is for the future. And you're doing that work for that purpose. It's pretty cool to see that you're really walking, what you're talking in that way.
Because it'll come to a point where I won't have vision anymore. And I won't have the concentration. I'll have a bad back and shoulders and neck. And I'll finish. I'll have to put my tools down at some point. Yeah. But I know when I do, my people are looked after. Yeah. And I've given my contribution to ensure that my people are strong. Yeah. What else can I add to that? And it's about thinking into the future. Yeah. There's one of our tribes here have been criticised. They have a catchphrase that says "Moko the world." So they're doing people in mass. Yeah. And then people criticise, well, you don't speak the language. What are you're not? You don't fit the criteria. And I understand that. And I understand that there's people are saying you don't need to do anything to deserve this. You're Māori, that's enough. You have the lineage. I understand when you say that, I understand the why, but you have to have a commitment and a contribution to carry it. Yeah. But when you look into the future, you want to say those future generations turn around, and then they know that they have it's gone from great-grandmother to grandmother to their mother, and so you're creating you're inheriting a tradition, So so that's, you got to realize the future is going to be better for us. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, when I think about that too is, at one time for us, it was dangerous for us to identify as who we are, to be recognized for who we are. And then today you see people getting their face marked. You see people wearing their marks from our community and being proud of who we are. And, we're starting to move from that place of it just being activists and then the scholars. And now we're moving into just everyday folks who are living their lives, who are getting those marks and being proud of who they are. And so that means the next generation then will, they'll have different battles than the battles that we had.
Yes.
And that's what we want, so they can fight the battles that they need to fight, but this isn't the one they have to fight for, of being who we are. Maybe it is more about how do we transform the world through story and through our governance, and then how do we bring that back to taking our lands and all of those type of things back. But today we're really in that battle of finding out who we are, not only finding it out, but proclaiming it.
Yes.
Because we know who we are, and this is about proclaiming who we are. So it's pretty cool to see, that progression of what's happening here and how that's, plays true to what's happening back home.
Mm-hmm. When you're at a gathering and you're having a conversation at 3 a.m.
Oh yeah.
And everyone sitting around the table is from a different, we say different culture, but from a different island or different, and we're all being honest for the sake of making each other stronger.
Yeah.
And educating each other.
Yeah.
Of where they sit.
Yeah.
Of their struggles. And I've sat with our Samoan, experts, our practitioners, and if they taught me something.
Yeah.
By sharing where they sit in their world.
Yeah.
And I thought I knew a little bit about their world, but I don't.
Yeah, no, totally.
It's a total complex.
Yeah.
And I'm Samoan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we share like this, it's, I was interviewed on our Indigenous TV.
Yeah.
And they said, in Māori, they said, so what's the hopes and aspirations in the future for a gathering like this? And I said, the hope is we can send out an invitation and all these people come to us. And the hope is they reciprocate and invite us to their home.
Yeah.
And we all come.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone that's here will all shift, move, and go there.
Yeah.
And we'll keep going around the world doing that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess one of the things, you had shared that some time ago you had drawn up some bodysuit designs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I guess looking at the work that I've been doing probably brought back some of those ideas that you had in the past.
Yep. I have an admiration for the Japanese art form of tattoo.
Yeah.
Especially the bodysuits.
Yeah.
So, you start thinking of, how would that look in the Tamako style or the Samoan Tatau style? And so I started designing bodysuits. And this was probably about 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
And that actually got me a lot of attention, especially with the Suluapa family.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Because not only was I doing a Māori bodysuit and the Samoan bodysuit, but I was doing a fusion bodysuit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, never been seen.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's new.
Yeah.
It was fresh,
Yeah.
Yeah, so, the tafunga, his name was Paula Suluapa at the time. And when I started apprenticing, he was there, and he was the one who was killed. In 2000. So I was just caught him before he left.
Yeah.
And I had enlarged a sketch into a big poster, body size, realistic, full size.
Yeah.
And he walked in and he goes, who done this? Thinking, I'm going to get reprimanded there. Oh, it's very beautiful.
Yeah.
And that was my beginning, and then we sat down and he talked about You know, this means this. This means this. You can put this on this placement, and
Yeah.
But in that very short time, he gave me. You know, he was sharing and feeding me. You know, feeding me stories.
Yeah.
So I haven't realised a full body suit yet, and I'm not sure if I ever will. But and I haven't seen too many that have taken that approach start to finish.
Yeah.
I know of one person that's started with that goal in mind, and it's a rarity.
Yeah, so anyone who's listening who wants to get a full Moko suit, bodysuit, or a fusion, reach out, and Haki's down to do one.
Yeah.
Let's get it done.
Yep.
You never know, you'll have somebody reach out now and you'll get it done.
Well, when I because I grew up in the Māori world, I'm Māori, Samoan, Fijian, I wanted to acknowledge my Samoan side. I didn't want to get the pea because I don't live in that.
Yeah.
Don't live in the culture.
Yeah.
But I designed this. I did a drawing for him to tattoo this.
Oh wow!
I did my forearm.
Yeah.
So it's like an influence from the pea.
Yeah.
And it's my commitment to showing people that I'm Samoan.
Yeah, upholding that.
Yeah, upholding it.
That part of you.
And so I gave him my book, my portfolio, and I said, "Can you do this?"
Yeah.
He looked at it and goes, "Yes, I'll do this." And it was the first one he'd ever done.
Wow.
It was at a point where Samoan Tatau was only done traditional. It was only the traditional legs. And,
wow.
And moving to a different placement hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Other than the armband. So he looked at my design. Let's do it.
Cool.
Yeah, and then I saw on TV.
Yeah.
The following week.
Yeah.
There was an interview with a well-known contemporary Samoan dancer.
Mm.
And Paolo Patelo Suluape had gone from me. The next week he'd gone to this guy.
Yeah.
And did
similar.
So it started
the movement.
Yeah, it started him thinking in contemporary.
Yeah.
You know.
That's cool.
The contemporary possibilities of what he can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I showed him my bodysuits.
Yeah.
And he goes, "John, I'm having a convention. You want to come?"
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was just excited to see something different, you know?
Yeah, yeah. That's cool. So did you go to that convention in Samoa at that time or no?
I didn't. I never made it there. It was only because I had a tragedy in my family that stopped me from going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But every time I'm at a gathering, you know, the Samoan practitioners always happily acknowledge what I'm doing with my work. Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
And it's fresh and new to them every time they see something I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't get offended when they see me taking something of theirs and creating something new with it, you know.
Yeah.
Because I'm of them, you know. I'm Samoan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. You know, as we start to wind down, is there any other final thoughts that you think you'd like to give out to the world? You know, because this podcast will, you know, include a multitude of voices and a multitude of people. When you think about the work that's happening here and across the world, you know, are there any words that you'd like to give out, maybe even to those young ones who are coming up in the work, you know, after being at it since, you know, the early 2000s, you know, what are the things that you would like to share for those who are coming up, beginning to pick up this practice?
I'll leave you with a train of thought, and it's if you want to awaken a culture and awaken the future, you got to awaken knowledge. All that knowledge that was hidden or was put to sleep.
Yeah.
we've got to, as people, as Indigenous people, we've got to find all that knowledge and awaken it.
Yeah.
But awaken it where it can survive
Yeah.
in today. You know?
Yeah.
And that's it. So today we have all the artistic expressions. Look for it, find it.
Yeah.
And we have all the environmental hidden knowledge.
Yeah.
All the seasonal, all the star knowledge.
Yeah.
All the navigational knowledge. We've got to all align it all together and make us strong.
Yeah.
But we've got to find it and awaken it.
Yeah. And weave it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for coming to visit with me on the Transformative Marks podcast here in Aotearoa. I'm stoked that you took the time to come and visit.
Well, I hope it was worth the something that I've said today was of value to anyone listening.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by and taking this journey with me through this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll just ask that you would go and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you have subscribed, thank you very much. I appreciate you following this journey. I just want you to remember that no matter who you are, where you're from, what you've done, or what you've been through, that you are amazing, that you are loved, and that we need you here today and going into the future so that we can transform this world for the better through our collective thoughts, actions, feelings, and our compassion for each other as human beings. Heading over next week's episode where I talk to Zach Orchard. In this episode, we discuss the reality that being active on social media around Indigenous issues hurts our tattoo businesses. Remember, every coffee helps me to bring you the content that you love. So head over to my Ko-Fi page and let's make something great together. And the last thing that I will ask you is to do me a solid and share this episode with somebody that you think will enjoy it. Thanks a lot and see you next week.